Shark Bait here again. Today I wanted to do just a brief overview of iron, fishing the iron. Iron fishing, we've got a lot of guys on the West Coast that are just really good at fishing iron. I'm not among those. I'm working at it. But I gotta say, there are a few things more fun than catching good fish on artificials. First experience with the surface type jigs came for me as a kid when my dad, he was in Marshall Islands in the Pacific, World War II, and he came back with some neat jigs made out of shells, from his time when he was there in the Navy. And they're proud possessions of mine. I've got them back home. I should have brought them over to show y'all. Maybe I can find a picture and put them up. But those shell jigs were surface lures, and I'll be switched that things would probably work just fine today. Material costs maybe a little bit higher. But on the West Coast, especially with some of the guys who've been around for 70 years fishing saltwater, these are mainstays on fishing the iron. And two basic styles of iron that we fish. There's the surface iron, and there's the deep drop or the yo-yo style iron. On the deep drop stuff, on the yo-yo iron, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago or so, there was a big deal about the Asian, jigging, pieces, knife jigs and whatever, like it was a new discovery. And the reality on the West Coast side, we've been fishing deep iron for years, and I'd say the same on the East Coast with the guys fishing diamond jigs, for tuna and other species of fish. It's an effective technique. It's nothing revolutionary about fishing the Asian style jigs. Reality is, out here on the West Coast, those jigs, no doubt can catch fish, but our typical iron does too. Now, surface iron is something that typically is early season, springtime, is barracuda oriented. And we also get yellowtail that way and bonita, but barracuda and yellowtail are kind of the focus species for a lot of guys that way. And tuna will take that type of stuff too. And then there's the deep drop. And the deep drop, yo-yo iron is stuff you fish vertically. You drop it down, you can cast it out, let it go down, or you can just drop it straight off the side of the boat, hit the bottom, come up a couple of cranks, and then basically you're doing a yo-yo. You bring the rod up and wind down, bring it up, wind down, bring it up, wind down. Or you'll just go with a fast crank and then drop her back down again and just repeat that process until you get bit and get zeroed in. But let's talk a little bit about iron. Just as far as the generals, I'm not trying to go in depth. I'm not trying to tell you how to fish. I'm just trying to show a range of product. Two primary names on the West Coast, and there have been over the years a number of different other players that are no longer here, whether it's UFO, Iron Man, Candy Bar. A number of the companies have come and gone over the years, leaving us with, right now, aside from some little offshoots, Taddy and Salas. That's bread and butter in the world of iron fishing. Salas jigs are more well known for their deep iron, and with those we get 6Xs and 6X juniors. Juniors just a little bit smaller than the 6X. If there is a bread and butter yellowtail iron for fishing cedros and bonitas and other places, for yellowtail, these are the guys that are bit, and for good reason. They get bit. Now, most companies that produce iron are smaller firms. In the case of Salas, we have Matt Salas. It's a multi-generational firm. He's taken it over from the old man. And Matt's pretty much a one-man band. He'll have a little bit of help maybe on painting and ringing up the jigs, but he does all the forging here. He's his own forge, and they're made in the USA. Again, more known for the deep drop, but they also have some surface iron in the 7Xs, and we stock a number of different sizes and styles from that manufacturer. Now, given that he does all of his work here, sometimes they can be a little more primitive in appearance. But who cares what they look like if they get bit? And these doggone things do get bit very well. Taddies look a little bit slicker, typically. Taddy jigs now, and I'd say for the last 5 years or so, are manufactured overseas. So they have the blanks produced in China, bring them over here, they'll ring them, hook them, paint them, and then get the product out on the market. Taddy, more known for the surface iron, but they make a lot of deep drop iron too. Taddy 4.0s are real popular on the deep. This would be a 4.0 up here that I'm showing. Similar in style, but not quite the same as the Salas jigs. But a Taddy 4.0 versus the Salas, a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, say a 6X Junior, nicely made jigs, no doubt about it. Now, before I run out of battery life, I think I mentioned briefly that Killer and Pep are kind of unique in that they do have brass jigs, fast drop. If you slam on the deck, they're not going to crack and break, like the typical pot metal or whatever that's being, manufactured. A couple of things that I also failed to mention. In the case of Salas, the PL68s are kind of a bread and butter. We get these in treble hooks, which is standard, as well as the big single hooks, which are a good tool for the bigger tuna. Taddy also has a number of jigs that way. Taddy has some chrome jigs, as does Sumo, having some nice chrome jigs with Lumo backs. Sumo's probably the only company with the Lumo backs these days. And then one jig I wanted to bring up to your attention would be the what we used to call Z bars, now are known as OCT 10 or One Cool Tuna 10. And I mentioned that some of the differences in shapes. These guys are your basic high-end jig. They're about 30 bucks, 35 bucks at retail. But they incorporate a number of features from other jigs. These are made on a CNC machine, so they're all machined metal. This is a surface iron. That's all they have currently. They will have some other pieces, but given that it's coming out of a CNC machine, they're all exactly the same, and they incorporate a ton of features that we see on some of the better designs. One of which, you can notice the hips here, a little more rounded, a little sharper on the side, maybe shows better on the back side that way. The smoothness, the way that's tapered on both the ring side and the hook side. These things all swing just very, very well. For the guys who look at that, they look at them and go, wow. So we've had a number of clients that have picked up 4 and 5 of these things, which seems kind of incredible to dump that much money on iron. But given that they all are exact copies and they all swim well and they all incorporate the features that have made some of the other jigs classics, is a good thing. And they do get bit very, very well. It's a surface iron for yellowtail. That's the intention. And that's kind of a brief, all too brief orientation on the iron. If you're going on a long range trip, absolutely have some iron. You'll make use of the deep drop. The surface iron will be a little more specific as far as the trip goes. One thing I do like a lot, and I mentioned before on the shape, Pep has a giant piece. This one is something I would love to have with me down at Cedros. Even for the bluefin, when they were hitting the surface on the poppers, this would be a great tool to get some distance out of. It does have the treble. That will work still on the bluefin. But it has, with that shape, it has a really, really nice seductive kick to it. A little slower retrieve as a consequence. Good iron. So there's a multitude of iron out there, and some of the guys who are really into it probably have 50 pieces they bring with them on a trip. I typically am going to have no less than a half dozen on the deeper iron, and there's some trips I'll take a lot more. Same companies, whether it's Pep or Salas, also make jigs that are more oriented towards, excuse me, towards Wahoo. So Salas has some wonderful pieces in that respect, as does Killer. And this would be an example of Killer's version. Again, it's like the Pep design with the cut. So it has a lot of action on the retrieve. Catchy tackle, produces jigs for the iron, for Wahoo as well, with the single hooks, sharp edge, a little more action than your typical slab bait like the old Raiders or the Wahoo Rippers. This would be a Salas setup for Wahoo. Can be very, very effective. Last year that was well proven. And again, kind of a unique color pattern on the red crab from Salas. Taddy has a version as well, as does Pep and Killer. So, if you're heading out on a long range trip, get a hold of us. We can help you get dialed in as far as what colors to go with. There are a number of bread and butters, blue and white, scrambled egg, some of the sardine smear or baby poop or bird poop. There are lots of different colors to work with. Some of that's going to be dependent upon the area you go as far as, and also what the forage is for the fish. If they're feeding on squid, absolutely have some scrambled egg with you. Scrambled egg would be, like this pattern. That's a scrambled egg. Blue and white is just that. Mint can be real effective. Some of the smear, some of the mackerel type patterns can be effective as well. That's a mac pattern. It's just, you just try different things and see what works, and once you have it figured out, just stick with it. You'll get bit. Thanks for watching. We'll try and get some more on fishing the iron maybe later on off a boat, something like that, so you can see how they work. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
This is